The morning sun had barely begun to warm the quiet streets when the small diner opened its doors. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and fried eggs. The waitress moved with practiced efficiency, balancing plates and drinks as she served early customers. She had worked here for years, and every routine task felt familiar, almost comforting. She liked the rhythm of the diner, the way conversations mixed with the clatter of dishes and the way regulars waved and smiled as they came in. That morning, the diner was busier than usual. The usual chatter of the regulars mixed with the soft hum of the old refrigerator in the corner. People came and went, some stopping only for a cup of coffee, others lingering over breakfast. The waitress moved between tables, taking orders, refilling drinks, and smiling at every person she greeted. She noticed everything that went on in her small world. The spilled ketchup, the dropped napkin, the laughter that bubbled from a corner table. Everything except for what was about to happen. He entered quietly, dressed simply but in a way that suggested he was used to attention. His presence didn't demand it, yet it commanded a subtle notice. He walked to a corner booth and sat down, removing his sunglasses and glancing around as if observing without being observed. The waitress noticed him immediately, not because he looked rich or famous, but because he looked alone, a little out of place and a little tense. She had seen people like him before, people who seemed to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders even as they tried to appear calm. She approached his table with a smile. "Good morning. Can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" she asked, her tone warm but professional. He nodded, his attention half on her and half on the menu in front of him. She jotted down his order and moved on to the next table, unaware that within the next few moments, everything in the diner would change. As she carried a tray of coffee to another table, a sudden cough from the corner drew her attention. The man had choked, his hand clutching his throat, eyes widening in panic. For a second, the room froze. Patrons stopped mid-bite, and a low murmur filled the air. She didn't hesitate. Her training from a first aid class a few months ago kicked in. She moved quickly to his side, asking calmly, "Are you choking? Can you breathe?" He shook his head, unable to speak, panic rising in his eyes. Without thinking, she guided him to stand slightly, positioning herself behind him and performing the Heimlich maneuver she had learned. The tension in the room grew thick as she applied the pressure in precise motions, and then finally a piece of food dislodged, and he coughed it out. Relief flooded his face as he gasped for air, and the room seemed to exhale together. The waitress stepped back, wiping her hands on a napkin, her own heart racing. "Are you okay now?" she asked, keeping her voice steady, though her pulse was still high. He nodded, swallowing hard, still catching his breath. I think so," he managed to say, finally finding his voice. Gratitude and disbelief mingled in his eyes as he looked at her. Other diners began clapping, some cheering softly, but she waved them off with a smile. "It's nothing," she said. "Just glad you're okay." Her humility only made the moment more striking. Here was a man of immense wealth and influence, and he had just been saved by someone many would overlook in daily life. Yet she didn't make it about herself. She simply focused on the fact that he was safe. The man's hands trembled slightly as he reached for the table. He was usually calm, composed, and in control, but the near miss had shaken him. "Thank you," he said again, more earnestly this time. I don't know what to say." The waitress smiled, shrugging slightly. "You don't have to say anything. Just take care of yourself." He studied her for a moment, noticing the strength and confidence in her actions, the way she had stayed calm under pressure. There was something about her, not just the skill but the composure, the presence of mind. He had seen many people in his life, met thousands, but rarely had someone so ordinary yet so extraordinary touched him in such a personal way. The waitress returned to her duties, checking on the other tables, refilling coffee, and taking new orders. Yet she kept a watchful eye on him, ensuring he was truly okay. He, in turn, kept glancing at her, unable to shake the mix of admiration and gratitude he felt. He had expected to be served, to be waited on, but he had not expected to be saved, not like this, by someone who didn't even know him. The rest of the morning passed with an unusual quietness. The diner was still busy, yet everyone seemed to sense that something extraordinary had happened. Conversations were softer, movement slower, as if the event had left an invisible mark on the place. She moved among the tables with her usual grace, but inside, she felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with a strange calm. She had done something important, something that mattered in a way she had never experienced at work before. At one point, he called her over again. Would you mind sitting down for a moment? He asked, his voice careful, almost hesitant. She hesitated, unsure if he really wanted company or was simply caught off guard by the situation. She finally nodded and joined him at the corner booth. He offered a small, awkward smile. I've met a lot of people in my life, but I've never met anyone like you. That was incredible what you did. You didn't panic, you stayed calm, and you helped me when I really needed it. Thank you. She shook her head, brushing it off. I just did what I could. Anyone would have done the same, I think. But he didn't seem convinced. His gaze lingered on her with genuine admiration, as if trying to understand how someone could be so composed and selfless in a moment of crisis. The morning continued, and the diner slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The other customers had resumed their meals and conversations, though occasional glances toward the corner booth indicated the story had not been forgotten. The waitress went about her work, taking orders, clearing tables, and offering smiles, yet a part of her was still aware of the man at the corner booth. He seemed different now, more human, more vulnerable than she could have imagined from afar. And she realized that in a single moment, two lives had intersected in a way neither could have predicted. By the time lunch hour approached, the event had settled into a quiet memory. The billionaire had regained his composure, and the waitress had returned to the steady rhythm of her work. Yet the connection formed in that brief encounter lingered, unspoken but undeniable. It was a small act, almost invisible to the outside world, but it carried weight, depth, and meaning. As she wiped down the counter and organized the trays, she couldn't help but feel a quiet pride. Not for recognition, not for fame, but for the simple knowledge that she had helped someone when it mattered most. And somewhere across the table he sat quietly, reflecting on the experience, realizing that an ordinary person had made an extraordinary difference in his life. That thought stayed with him, marking the beginning of a story neither of them could have imagined, one that would soon unfold in ways far beyond the walls of the small diner. After the morning rush had ended, the diner settled into a quieter pace. The hum of conversation returned to normal, and the waitress continued her work, serving plates and refilling drinks. But the energy of what had happened lingered in the air. Patrons still whispered among themselves, some pointing subtly toward the corner booth where the billionaire sat, quietly observing the room with a distant, thoughtful expression. He watched the waitress move from table to table, her ease and grace catching his attention repeatedly. He realized that what had impressed him was not just her quick action, but the calmness she carried in her daily life. The way she treated every customer with the same respect, and the way she handled chaos as if it were part of a natural rhythm. He had never thought of someone's ordinary life as something admirable until that moment. He called her over again, trying to appear casual, but there was a tension in his posture that betrayed his inner turmoil. I wanted to ask you something, he said, his voice steady but careful. She leaned slightly toward him, curious but cautious. Do you often take first aid classes, or was that just instinct? She shrugged modestly. A little of both, I guess. I just thought someone needed help and I could do something. Didn't think it was a big deal. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. It was a big deal. To me, it was everything. I didn't expect anyone to act so quickly. You really saved my life. He hesitated, then added, most people wouldn't know what to do or they would freeze. You didn't. She looked down at her hands, a little embarrassed by the praise. I just did what I thought was right. That's all. You don't owe me anything. He studied her, noticing the humility that matched her bravery. She didn't boast. She didn't seek attention. And yet she had acted decisively when it mattered most. For someone so ordinary in appearance, she carried an extraordinary presence. And it fascinated him. The billionaire felt a strange pull. A desire to know more about the woman who had changed the course of his morning, and perhaps more. He asked her small questions about her life, about the diner, and about her work. She answered simply and honestly, without embellishment. She had been working at the diner for years, supporting herself and helping her family, and she spoke about her life with quiet pride. There was resilience in her tone, a strength he recognized instantly. As the conversation continued, he realized he had underestimated the human connections that could come from even the simplest encounters. He had lived surrounded by wealth, influence, and power, yet he rarely met people who affected him on a purely human level. This woman, a waitress in a small diner, had done just that. Her actions had touched something deep within him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Outside, the world went on, but inside the diner, time seemed to slow. Other customers had returned to their meals, but they noticed the interaction, sensing that something unusual was unfolding. The waitress continued her work, yet she felt a quiet awareness, a sense that her ordinary life had suddenly intersected with someone extraordinary. It was not fame, not money, but a recognition of her humanity, and it made her both uneasy and proud. The billionaire's attention was fixed on her, yet he struggled with how to express his gratitude beyond words. He wanted to do more than say thank you. He wanted to acknowledge the depth of her courage and kindness in a way that truly mattered. Yet he knew that most gestures of wealth or influence would seem out of place, even inappropriate. She had acted without thought of reward or recognition, and he feared that any attempt at compensation might seem insincere. She, on her part, returned to her work, taking orders, clearing tables, and offering smiles, but a subtle tension remained. She was aware of his gaze, aware that he was still observing her, and part of her wondered what it all meant. She did not seek attention, yet she could not ignore the weight of the moment. The unusual connection formed between two lives that had never crossed paths before. As the lunch hour approached, the diner grew busier, and she moved quickly from table to table, serving food and drinks with practiced ease. But the billionaire stayed in the corner, quietly observing her, reflecting on what had happened. He thought about the fragility of life and how unexpected moments could change everything. One small act of bravery, one decision to help had created a bond between them, and he could not ignore it. After a while, he asked her again to sit for a moment, this time with more ease in his tone. She agreed, sliding into the booth across from him. He offered a genuine smile, a rare warmth in his eyes that revealed the impact of her actions. "I've met a lot of people in my life," he began carefully, "but very few have impressed me in the way you have today. You have courage, composure, and a sense of responsibility that is rare. I want you to know that I see it, and I appreciate it deeply." She looked at him, her expression a mix of surprise and modesty. "I didn't do it for recognition," she said quietly. "I just did what I thought was right." He nodded, understanding completely. "I know that, and that is what makes it remarkable. You didn't act for praise or reward. You acted because it was the right thing to do. That is rare in this world, and it is why I feel I must do something to honor it in a way that matters." She hesitated, unsure what he meant. But she listened, her curiosity piqued. He continued, explaining that while words of thanks were meaningful, he wanted to acknowledge her bravery in a way that could have a lasting impact. He was considering ways to support her future, though he did not yet know what form that would take. For the waitress, this was overwhelming. She had never expected her actions to carry such significance, and she struggled to reconcile her ordinary life with the extraordinary attention she was receiving. She was proud of what she had done, but she was not used to being seen in this way, not by someone so far removed from her everyday world. The conversation turned lighter, filled with small talk about the diner, her work, and the people she served. Yet beneath the surface was an unspoken understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the moment that had connected them. He realized that gratitude could be more than words. It could be action, attention, and recognition of the humanity in someone who had so selflessly acted in a moment of need. By mid-afternoon, the diner had returned to its normal rhythm. The lunch crowd had come and gone, and the waitress moved efficiently through her tasks, though a quiet awareness remained. She was aware of the billionaire's continued presence, but she carried herself with the same humility and grace that had defined her actions earlier. He, too, remained thoughtful. He had been shaken by the morning's events, and her bravery had left an impression that would not fade quickly. He thought about how many times in life people went unnoticed, how many acts of courage went unrecognized, and how one moment could change the trajectory of lives in ways unimaginable. The waitress finished her shift later that afternoon, exhausted but fulfilled. She had done her job, helped someone in need, and returned to her ordinary life, yet she knew that something extraordinary had taken place. For the billionaire, the day had begun with a routine visit to a diner, but it had ended with a realization that true courage and humanity could be found in the most unexpected places. As she closed up the diner and prepared to leave, she glanced once more at the corner booth where he had been sitting. He was gone now, but the memory of the encounter lingered. She had no idea how much of an impact she had made, yet she felt a quiet sense of pride. She had acted without thought of reward, yet the result had been life-changing for someone else and perhaps, in ways she did not yet understand, for herself as well. That evening, she walked home through the quiet streets reflecting on the day. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly moments could change, and how ordinary people could do extraordinary things when it mattered most. She did not yet know what the billionaire would do next, but she understood that her actions had created a connection that could not be ignored. The gratitude he had shown, the attention he had paid, and the respect he had given her were gifts that went beyond money or status. They were recognition of her humanity, her courage, and her selflessness. And somewhere, in his world of high towers, meetings, and endless responsibilities, the billionaire was thinking the same thing. He was thinking about her strength, her composure, and the quiet heroism that had saved him. He was thinking about how one ordinary person had made an extraordinary difference in his life, and he knew that he wanted to honor that in a way that went beyond simple words. The story was far from over, and both their lives were about to change in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The day after the incident, life at the diner was much the same on the surface. The waitress arrived early, tying her apron and arranging the coffee cups with familiar precision. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the worn wooden tables. But there was an underlying shift in the air, a quiet tension that seemed to hum just beneath the surface. News of what had happened had begun to circulate. Some customers who had been present during the incident talked quietly among themselves, sharing the story with anyone who would listen. By lunchtime, a few local blogs had picked it up, describing how a waitress had saved a prominent man in a public place. The story was simple but powerful, capturing the attention of people who admired courage in ordinary life. Despite the growing attention, the waitress moved through her morning duties with the same calm efficiency as ever. She took orders, served food, refilled coffee, and smiled at the customers, but inside she felt a mixture of pride and unease. She had never sought recognition, and the thought of suddenly being the center of attention was both flattering and intimidating. The billionaire, meanwhile, could not shake the memory of the morning that had changed his day, perhaps even his perspective. He found himself thinking about her constantly, the steady hands, the clear-headedness under pressure, the genuine humility that had accompanied her heroism. He was used to people showing respect out of obligation or fear, but what he saw in her was different. It was authenticity, and it left a mark on him. Unable to let the matter rest, he contacted the diner that afternoon. When the waitress answered, there was a mixture of surprise and caution in her voice. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right," he said simply, "and to thank you again for what you did. I know it might be strange to call, but I wanted to hear your voice and make sure you're doing well." She felt a warmth in the simplicity of his words. It wasn't a grand gesture or a formal acknowledgement, just a genuine check-in from someone whose life she had touched. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied. "Just doing my job and moving on, like always." The billionaire smiled at her modesty, even though she could not see it over the phone. "That's what makes it remarkable," he said softly. "Most people would say it's nothing, but it's everything. I wanted you to know that I'm thinking of you and your courage, and that I respect it deeply." After they ended the call, she returned to her duties, feeling a quiet shift inside. For the first time, she realized that her actions had consequences beyond the immediate moment. Her courage had not only saved a life, but also sparked recognition, respect, and perhaps even opportunity. She could feel it stirring, like a gentle ripple spreading outward, touching aspects of life she had never considered before. The story began to grow in the local community. Word of mouth spread quickly, and soon strangers were stopping by the diner to express their admiration. They didn't know her personally, but the story resonated. A waitress, someone ordinary in appearance, had acted with extraordinary bravery. People were inspired by her calmness, her kindness, and the courage she had displayed without hesitation. She navigated the attention with grace, deflecting praise with humble words, always careful not to let it affect her work or her sense of self. Yet inside, a new awareness had taken root. She had the power to impact lives, to act decisively when it mattered most, and to be recognized for qualities that went beyond mere luck or circumstance. Meanwhile, the billionaire's world began to feel the ripple in subtle ways. He thought about how often life's fragile moments went unnoticed, how ordinary acts of courage could go unrecognized in his sphere of influence. He realized that he had rarely encountered people whose character had been revealed so clearly in such a brief moment. It made him reconsider how he viewed the people around him, and how he could support those whose actions reflected true humanity. Curiosity and admiration led him to learn more about the waitress. He discovered her dedication to work, the responsibilities she carried, and the resilience she displayed daily. She was balancing multiple challenges: long hours, family obligations, and the demands of a job that often went unnoticed. For someone who had never expected attention or recognition, she was quietly extraordinary. The ripple of the incident spread further as the media picked up the story in small features. A local newspaper highlighted the courage of ordinary people, using her as an example of how bravery could be found in everyday life. Social media posts circulated, showing gratitude and admiration for her quick thinking and calm presence. Comments poured in, praising her humility, her composure, and the life-saving act that had sparked the conversation. Yet she remained grounded. She didn't let the attention change her or make her feel superior. She continued to serve her customers with the same care, noticing their needs, listening to their stories, and performing her tasks with diligence. But she also allowed herself a quiet satisfaction. She knew deep down that her actions had mattered in a way she had never experienced before. The billionaire, however, was not content with passive acknowledgement. He began to consider what he could do to create a lasting impact. Words alone were not enough. He wanted to honor the waitress in a way that reflected the depth of her courage and the authenticity of her character. He knew that gifts of money or material things would be shallow if they were not meaningful. He needed a way to recognize her that would resonate, empower, and respect her life and choices. Days passed, and the waitress's routine continued, though the memory of the incident remained vivid. She had spoken to friends and family about what had happened, though she downplayed her heroism, insisting it was nothing special. Yet they all saw the truth. Her bravery had changed a life. Her calmness had altered the course of a day, and perhaps even the course of someone's future. The billionaire found ways to reach out indirectly, sending small notes of gratitude and checking in through the diner staff. He didn't want to overwhelm her or impose, but he wanted her to know that her actions had not been forgotten. Each gesture, small as it was, reminded her that courage, humility, and kindness had their own rewards, often far beyond what she could see in the moment. Then one afternoon, as the diner was quieter and the sun filtered through the windows, he returned in person. The waitress was initially startled to see him again, unsure what to expect. He approached with a calm, sincere demeanor, and he thanked her once more, this time in person, for saving his life. He explained that he had spent the days since the incident thinking about how to honor her actions in a way that mattered. He spoke of respect, admiration, and the importance of recognizing the courage of ordinary people who displayed extraordinary character. His words were not grandiose, not inflated, but deeply personal, touching on the qualities he saw in her: selflessness, resilience, and authenticity. The waitress listened, a mixture of humility and quiet pride washing over her. She had never expected her actions to carry such weight. She had simply done what was right, yet here she was, recognized in a meaningful, heartfelt way. The acknowledgement wasn't about fame or money. It was about the recognition of her humanity, and that meant more than she could have imagined. Their conversation stretched over the afternoon, filled with moments of reflection and genuine connection. The billionaire asked her about her dreams, her challenges, and her hopes. She spoke honestly, revealing the pressures and responsibilities she managed daily, and he listened. Not as someone looking to impress or change her life instantly, but as someone seeking to understand and honor her as a person. By the time he left, the ripple effect was clear. The waitress had touched a life in a way that extended far beyond the walls of the diner. Her actions had prompted reflection, admiration, and a genuine desire to make a difference. And for the billionaire, she had reminded him of the extraordinary humanity that could be found in the simplest, most unexpected places. The day closed with a quiet sense of satisfaction for the waitress. She cleaned the diner, arranged the tables, and reflected on how life could shift in a single moment. Her courage had sparked change, recognition, and connection. And as the evening light faded, She realized that her life, though ordinary in appearance, had the capacity to create ripples that reached far beyond her expectations. She returned home, carrying the memory of the morning, the gratitude of the billionaire, and the quiet pride that came from knowing she had done something remarkable, somewhere in a world far removed from her own. The man she had saved carried her courage with him, inspired by the selflessness, calm, and authenticity she had shown. The ripple was only beginning, and both their lives were on the brink of transformation in ways neither could yet imagine. A few days later, the diner was buzzing as usual, the clatter of dishes and chatter of patrons blending into the familiar rhythm. Yet for the waitress, each movement carried a sense of anticipation. She had grown accustomed to the idea that her actions had left an impact, but the realization that her life might soon change in ways she had never imagined made her both nervous and curious. The billionaire returned, this time without the urgency or worry that had accompanied his first visit. His demeanor was calm, composed, yet there was an unmistakable warmth in his eyes as he looked at her. He greeted her politely, thanking her once again for saving his life. But this time his words carried a weight that suggested something more than gratitude. "I've been thinking a lot about that morning," he began. "I realized that what you did for me was not just brave, it was extraordinary. And I want to make sure that your courage doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. I want to help you in a way that truly matters if you'll allow me." She felt a mix of emotions. Gratitude, humility, and disbelief ran through her mind. She had never imagined that one moment could lead to an offer like this. She hesitated, unsure how to respond. I don't know what to say," she admitted softly. "I never expected anything in return. I just did what felt right." He smiled, acknowledging her humility. "I know, and that's what makes it remarkable. But sometimes, even when people don't seek help or recognition, they deserve opportunities to grow, to explore what life has to offer beyond what they already know. You've shown courage, composure, and integrity. These are qualities that can take you far, and I want to make sure you have the chance to use them." She listened carefully, trying to process the weight of his words. He wasn't offering a casual gift or token of appreciation. He was offering something transformative. It was a chance to explore possibilities she had never considered, to step into a future that could be shaped by her own choices, with guidance and support. He explained that he wanted to offer her opportunities that could enhance her skills, broaden her horizons, and provide stability for her and her family. He spoke about mentorship, financial support for education or training, and even potential career opportunities within his organization, should she be interested. The offer was overwhelming, yet it was presented with respect, allowing her the freedom to decide what she wanted. The waitress felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She had always been independent, relying on her own work and resilience to navigate life. Accepting help from someone so powerful felt foreign, almost uncomfortable. Yet beneath that discomfort was a recognition that this was an opportunity to grow, to achieve more than she had imagined possible. She realized that her bravery had not only saved a life, but had opened a door to possibilities she had never dreamed of. Over the next few days, they met several times in informal settings. He invited her to his office and introduced her to people who could provide guidance and advice. Each meeting was carefully structured, respectful, and focused on understanding her goals and aspirations. He asked questions about what she enjoyed, what she hoped to achieve, and what challenges she faced. She responded honestly, revealing the pressures and responsibilities she managed daily, and he listened intently, offering encouragement and insight without imposing his own agenda. Through these interactions, she began to see the world from a broader perspective. She realized that her actions, her courage, and her character had not only saved a life but had also inspired someone with the resources and influence to create meaningful change. The possibility of using her strengths in new ways, of pursuing goals she had never thought attainable, began to take shape in her mind. One afternoon, he presented a specific opportunity. He explained that he wanted to support her in pursuing a training program that aligned with her skills and interests. It was a program that could open doors to new career paths, providing education, mentorship, and practical experience. The offer was structured with care, designed to empower her without taking away her independence or autonomy. She considered it carefully. The idea of stepping into a new environment, of learning and growing in a setting far removed from the diner, was both exciting and intimidating. She realized that accepting the opportunity did not diminish her past actions. It honored them. Her bravery had led to this moment, and she could choose to embrace it. With a mixture of nervousness and determination, she accepted the offer. The billionaire smiled, acknowledging her decision and expressing his confidence in her ability to succeed. He emphasized that this was not just about career advancement or financial support, but about recognizing her courage, resilience, and potential. He wanted her to see that her life could expand in ways she had never imagined, guided by her own choices and determination. In the days that followed, preparations were made for her new journey. She received guidance on the training program, support for logistical arrangements, and encouragement to pursue her goals with confidence. The process was structured to ensure that she felt empowered, not dependent, and that her unique strengths and experiences were recognized and valued. As she prepared to step into this new chapter, she reflected on the journey that had led her here. The act of saving a life, which had seemed ordinary in the moment, had created a ripple effect that transformed her circumstances. She felt gratitude, humility, and a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that courage and integrity were qualities that could open doors, inspire change, and create opportunities that extended far beyond what she had previously imagined. The billionaire continued to offer guidance and support, respecting her autonomy while providing encouragement. He emphasized that her actions had demonstrated qualities that were rare and valuable, and that the world could benefit from her talents and character. She began to see herself not just as a waitress who had acted bravely, but as a person capable of growth, influence, and meaningful contribution. Her family and friends noticed the change in her demeanor. There was a confidence in the way she carried herself, a quiet assurance that came from knowing she had faced a challenge, acted decisively, and opened a path to new possibilities. They celebrated her courage and supported her as she embraced this opportunity, recognizing that her life was entering a new and exciting phase. The diner remained a familiar backdrop to her daily life, but the future now held a sense of promise and possibility. She continued her work there, serving customers with the same care and attention, yet her mind and heart were open to the broader horizons that awaited her. The ripple effect of her bravery had not only transformed the billionaire's perspective, but had also created a path for her own growth and development. Through it all, she remained humble, grounded, and true to herself. She did not seek recognition or praise, but she embraced the opportunities presented to her with gratitude and determination. She understood that her courage had been the catalyst, and she was committed to using it to create a meaningful, fulfilling life. As she looked toward the future, she felt a sense of hope and possibility that had been absent before. The journey was just beginning, and she knew that there would be challenges along the way. But she also knew that she possessed the strength, resilience, and courage to face them, guided by the recognition and support she had received. The act that had seemed so ordinary in the moment, the act of saving a life, had created a profound and lasting impact, shaping her future in ways she had never imagined. Months had passed since the morning that had changed everything. The waitress had embarked on the opportunities offered to her, embracing new experiences, learning and growing. Her life, once defined by routine, had opened up to a horizon filled with possibility. She balanced her time carefully, remaining connected to the diner and her community while exploring new avenues that challenged and inspired her. Each day brought a sense of purpose. She attended training sessions, engaged with mentors, and applied herself with determination and focus. Though the environment was different, she found that the qualities that had guided her in the diner, calmness under pressure, attention to detail, and a sense of empathy, served her well in every situation. She adapted quickly, earning respect from peers and instructors, not through status or wealth, but through her integrity, diligence, and humility. The billionaire continued to support her from a distance, offering advice and encouragement without imposing. He respected her independence and her pace, knowing that her strength lay in her ability to navigate life with grace and courage. His acknowledgement of her efforts was quiet but consistent, reinforcing her confidence without overshadowing her achievements. Word of her journey began to spread beyond the diner and the local community. People were inspired by her story, not just the act of saving a life, but the way she carried herself afterward, embracing opportunities with humility and determination. She became a symbol of how ordinary people could rise to extraordinary circumstances when guided by courage, integrity, and a willingness to act. Despite the attention, she remained grounded. She continued to serve at the diner when she could, finding comfort in the familiar routines and the people she had known for years. Her customers noticed a change in her demeanor, a quiet confidence and sense of purpose that radiated from her. Yet she was the same person at heart, kind, attentive, and committed to helping others in small, meaningful ways. The billionaire, observing her progress, felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He had always known that her actions were remarkable, but seeing her grow and thrive in ways that aligned with her character was deeply rewarding. It was a reminder that recognition and opportunity, when paired with personal integrity and effort, could create transformation that was lasting and meaningful. One afternoon, he invited her to a gathering at his office, a meeting with people who were inspired by her story and wanted to learn from her experiences. She arrived cautiously, unsure what to expect, but was met with warmth and respect. The room was filled with people from various backgrounds, business leaders, community organizers, and educators, all eager to hear from someone who had demonstrated courage, humility, and resilience in a moment that had touched many lives. She spoke honestly, sharing the events of that morning and the journey that followed. Her words were simple, sincere, and relatable. She described the fear she had felt, the quick thinking that had guided her actions, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Her story was not just about saving a life. It was about the human qualities that made that act possible, and how those qualities could inspire others to act with courage and integrity in their own lives. The audience was captivated. They asked questions, seeking insight into how she maintained calm under pressure, how she approached challenges, and how she balanced humility with the recognition she had received. She responded with honesty, sharing both her fears and her triumphs, acknowledging the support she had received while emphasizing the importance of personal responsibility and perseverance. As the gathering ended, the billionaire approached her with a smile. "You have touched many lives," he said quietly. "Not just mine, but everyone who has heard your story. You have shown that courage and kindness are powerful, and that they can create change far beyond a single moment. I am proud of the person you are and the journey you have taken." She felt a deep sense of gratitude. It was not just for the opportunities he had provided, but for the recognition of her humanity, her courage, and her character. She realized that true impact was not measured by wealth or status, but by the influence of integrity, empathy, and decisive action. In the months that followed, she continued to grow and inspire. She took on new challenges, applied her skills in meaningful ways, and remained committed to her roots. The diner remained a touchstone, a place that grounded her and reminded her of where she had come from. Her interactions with customers were imbued with new confidence and perspective, yet she retained the same humility that had defined her from the start. The billionaire's response, consistent and respectful, reinforced the lessons she had learned. Recognition, when offered with sincerity and without expectation, could empower individuals to reach their full potential. His belief in her capabilities, coupled with her own courage and effort, created a transformation that was both personal and far-reaching. Together, their story became a symbol of human connection and the extraordinary impact of ordinary acts. The simple moment of her saving a life had sparked a series of events that altered both of their paths. It was a testament to the power of courage, humility, and integrity, and to the ways in which one selfless act could resonate across lives and communities. By the time she looked back, the journey from that morning in the diner to her current life was remarkable.